So if you're a gamer, you've probably heard the term rogue-like or roguelite tossed around a lot recently because it is an ever-growing genre. Now, if you're not familiar with what the term means, there was an old game called Rogue where you had procedurally generated levels each time and you died a lot. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. This was a game where it was technically turn-based. Every step you took, every attack you did was considered a turn, and enemies moved whenever you moved. So everything you did allowed enemies to also move, and well, there's a lot of games out there calling themselves roguelikes that aren't a lot like Rogue. They just have components where there's procedurally generated worlds and you die a lot. So hence the term roguelite is often used to describe those games, and probably the most popular game of that genre in recent years is FTL. I'm not going to go a lot into FTL. If you're not familiar with it, it stands for Faster Than Light. You start with a ship, you unlock more ships, you go out and you have random encounters and you fight other ships and you make decisions, so on and so forth. And well, it's an awesome game. If you don't know what it is, just go get it. No, it's available on iOS and actually plays very well on a touchpad as well, and also plays very well on a PC. And like I said, this is probably the most popular game in the genre, so I'm not going to go into a lot and show off some of the other games that, if you like FTL or this style of game, you may like as well. So the reason I'm showing off Dungeons of Dredmor is this is truly a rogue-like game where everything is turn-based. As you move and do things, the enemies move and do things. This is a game that is very much like the original Rogue, except it has, obviously much better graphics, even though you may look at this and say the graphics are terrible. The idea, and actually this, just to let you know, there are things that could happen that were called monster zoos in the original games, where just because of the random generation, there just accidentally ends up being a ton of monsters in one room. So this game decided, well, we could avoid that now, we have the computing technology to do it, but we're going to do it anyways, because why not? So this is a game that basically has graphics that the original Rogue didn't have, but tries to keep very true to that gameplay, and has a bunch of different classes, a bunch of stuff to unlock, but as you see it play out, is something that plays very similar to that gameplay. So if you are okay with that older school style gameplay, this is a game that you can pick up for $5, and either if you're someone who remembers that style of gameplay and likes it, or a younger person and wants to see what games used to be like, or just think that sounds interesting, this is, one of the better games that is actually a rogue-like and plays similar to the original Rogue game. Alright, so I'm talking about Moon Hunters because it just came out this month. It's one of the more recent games on the list. So this is a game that if you were expecting an action RPG like Diablo or something like that, that you might think initially looking at the game and its combat, you are probably going to be disappointed. This is a very short game. You only have a certain number of days, but that is the point of it. You're supposed to replay it over and over again. That is part of the appeal of this game and games like this. So this obviously takes place in real time, and you're going to be going around making decisions, meeting people, and fighting in combat. Now the combat itself is not actually super engaging. There are things that you can level up with your character. You don't actually gain experience, but you get money to allow you to buy upgrades. The interesting part of the game, in my opinion, is that as you make choices throughout the game in the world, you will earn different traits. Like, for example, a decision you make might say, oh, your character is now brave because of that, and now that they are brave, they are able to interact with something you wouldn't normally be able to interact with. You'll come across things in the world that, like, I saw an example where somebody comes across food that doesn't have any smell, so the character doesn't partake of it. But, well, if they were more foolish, maybe they would have. So if you had the foolish trait, which might seem negative, it would actually allow you to do something that you wouldn't normally be able to do. And basically, the goal of the game is that there are a bunch of different endings you can get to. There are areas you won't be able to even get to early in the game, with the abilities that you'll have, but you'll unlock more and more stuff and be able to see more and more stuff and more endings. So don't go into it expecting super deep combat, but rather something that you can just explore and eventually unlock things as you go, as this game's key is not length or combat, but exploration. It is currently available for $15, and like I said, I'm particularly interested in that, seeing what different traits do as you go. Alright, Rogue Legacy is another $15 game that, again, if you hear the term roguelike, they're not actually referring to Rogue Legacy, they're referring to Rogue, but this is a game that, again, plays out in real time, not turn-based, but the kind of catch of this game is that your character, every time you play, is going to start with something different about them. They may be dyslexic, or they may have, baldness, or just all kinds of random things that may offer a kind of weird considered debuffed, it may force you to play the game differently. So not only is there a lot of replay in this style of game, but this offers you even more. You may get something with your character that makes the character pretty much unplayable, and you know that you're not going to be able to beat the run. But, that is kind of the fun and the appeal of it too. And then you basically get money in the game that will allow you to buy upgrades for your next character is kind of the catch behind the game. So another interesting take on the genre. Alright, so technically enter the Gungeon is newest game on my list because it is not out yet. Its release date is April 5th. So this is another game that is actually more similar to, say, The Binding of Isaac or Nuclear Throne, if you're familiar with those games. So the appeal of this game is, yes, you have randomly generated dungeons, but they are all gun-themed, and the games, because of that, are a bit more bullet hell-ish, where you're going to have a lot of stuff coming at you all over the place. However, the game also adds a dodge roll to kind of help compensate for that. It's still going to be a very different game, but just offer a lot of variety in guns, and then again, that theme of the dungeon allows you a little bit different gameplay. So at first, if you're into those sort of games, you might say, oh, dodge roll, you shouldn't have something like that, but trust me, I've seen a lot of gameplay of this, and they're going to throw a lot of stuff at you. So it's an interesting take. If you liked Binding of Isaac or Nuclear Throne and are looking for something like that, then this is a game you might want to check out. It is available right now with 10% off as pre-order for $13.49, and like I said, should be out early next month. Lastly, I'm going to throw out there Risk of Rain. So Risk of Rain is a $10 game with a throwback pixel art style. This game offers a ton of equipment and just things that you can find that, like a lot of these games, you're not going to know what they do the first time you get them unless you look them up in some sort of wiki or something like that. But really, part of the fun of playing these games is figuring out what stuff does, what's good, and what's bad. And this game is going to play very, very differently depending on what sort of things you get and, how your character upgrades as you go. And you can even see different types of ways the character is going to end up looking, different weapons that they're going to have from this trailer. So this is a pretty interesting game if you like that throwback art style and just really fast-paced, hectic gameplay from the 2D side-scrolling perspective. Alright, so I'm not sure what my next genre of games is going to be. Let me know in the comments if there's something in particular you'd like to see. I'm showing Darkest Dungeon here not because it is really a roguelike or roguelite. There are some elements in that your people are going to die a lot, but the game continues on because even though your characters have permadeath, you can just go get more. But the idea, obviously, being that you want your guys to level up and keep them alive as they level up so they can do the harder dungeons. And it's just an awesome game, so I thought I'd show it off. But if there's something in particular you'd like to see, let me know. Let me know what you think about this series. If you like the idea of me trying to show off any games you may not heard about that are actually worth playing. And again, let me know if there's something else you guys would like to see. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again soon.